The Boston Celtics are one of the most historic franchises in the NBA's long history, but despite making the conference finals 5 times in the past 7 years, they've been unable to reach the mountaintop in the Tatum era. The past 2 years seem like their best chance, 2 years ago making it to the finals and having a 2-1 lead, but they would lose in the end to the Warriors, and last year they came all the way back down 3-0 and tied the series, but then got blown out in Game 7 by the 8th seeded Heat. The front office finally had enough, went out and secured what they believe will get them to the top of the mountain in Kristaps Porzingis, and from what we've seen so far this season, the Celtics are just too good to fail. The Celtics are in the midst of one of their best starts to a season in a while, with a 45-12 record and sitting firmly atop the East with a 7.5 game lead over the Cavs, who sit in the 2 seed. To put this into perspective, there's only a 7 game difference between the 1-seeded Timberwolves and the 8th seeded Mavericks in the West. They are in the middle of an 8-game winning streak, and this could continue for a while. They currently have the 3rd easiest strength of schedule remaining for the rest of the season, which means they have a pretty easy schedule. This team is firing on all cylinders right now, and there's a few reasons why this team is now starting to look better than the previous versions of this team, despite still having the same star players. The first reason was their massive, figuratively and literally trade in Kristaps Porzingis this offseason. This trade was very surprising at the moment for Celtics fans, as one of the main pieces being traded was Marcus Smart. If you asked any Celtics fan last season how long they thought Marcus Smart would be on the team, I bet almost all of them would say he would be a Celtic for life. Smart was the fire of the team and the locker room, bringing everyone together in moments of adversity. Despite this move being surprising, it was needed. I talked about why this team failed last season in this video. Most of that video was about Jayson Tatum, but my biggest problem with the Celtics lay with Marcus Smart. Smart had been the longest tenured Celtic out of the big 3 with Tatum and Brown, which meant that he had become the leader. This wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but the writing was on the wall. Smart being the leader led to moments last year and in the past that made the locker room a little bit weary. During last season, there was some reports during Game 2 that Jaylen Brown asked Mazzulla if he could guard Harden after he got cooked in Game 1. Mazzulla told Brown to ask Smart, as it was alluded that he would make the decision, not the head coach of the team. Smart also was known for taking the last shot multiple times during the previous seasons, even with 2 stars on the team in Tatum and Brown. There was a clear leadership issue that wasn't going to get solved, but now with Smart off the team, it became clear that it was time for Tatum to step into his role. Bringing this back to Porzingis, this trade was massive for the Celtics as he's putting up 27 and 2 blocks, fitting into that 3rd star role almost seamlessly. He has been a force both offensively and defensively and has done everything they had hoped he would bring to the table so far this year, truly making a big 3 with 3-star level players up to this point. Next up is Jayson Tatum. My biggest issues with Tatum throughout his career up to this point is that he is one of the biggest hot-cold players in the league, especially in the playoffs, and the fact that he is a power forward, playing small forward, playing like Steph Curry. We'll have to see how he pans out in this year's playoffs, but his issues behind the 3-point arc seem like they're starting to turn around. I highlighted before that since the 2020 season, his 3-point percentage had gone down while his attempts had gone up every year. But this season, he's changing his ways. He's attempting less threes and has a higher percentage right now than he did last year, which shows that he's taking better shots. In the past, we have seen teams like the Heat and the Warriors set up Tatum for these shots in the playoffs by leaving him available to take shots from deep by clogging up the paint, and it has worked. Tatum has forced himself into bad shots plenty of times, just pulling up from deep when he can't get to the paint, but if he's changing his ways, then the team will thrive like we have never seen. I'm not saying that Tatum shouldn't take threes, he's a good 3-point shooter, but I think he would benefit from using his size more instead of chucking up threes, and clearly, when he thinks about it, his shots have become way more efficient from deep. Tatum is the 2nd worst shooter out of their 8-man rotation by percentage, with Brown being the worst. With Tatum becoming more of a playmaker this season, he has now been surrounded with good shooters like Jrue Holiday, so if he can start playing more into his playmaking role, the team will be able to reach that near elite level 3-point shooting. The Celtics also now have their best defensive rating since 2021 and currently have the 3rd best in the league thanks to their 2 additions in Porzingis and Jrue Holiday. Holiday has been known as one of the best, if not the best defensive guards in the league, and the Celtics made a move in October to bolster that defense. By trading away Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams and some picks, they were able to acquire the former All-Star. Rob Will is out for the season with an injury, and despite Brogdon playing well, I still would say that the Celtics won this trade with Holiday's elite defense and 44% from 3. They've also had the best offensive rating in the league with Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard all having career-high offensive outputs this season. Jaylen Brown is having his best shooting percentage season this year and is having his highest assist season so far in his career. This whole team is playing well on both sides of the ball, leading to them being so good this year, elite offensively and defensively, having the best net team overall so far. They're too good to fail, but we've seen better teams than this not win in the end, talking about the 73-9 Warriors, the first team that comes to mind, but so many other teams. So what could be the reason this team doesn't win it all in the end? 2 reasons come to mind for me. I'm not going to say injuries because despite them being a part of the game, you can't predict injuries, and obviously if all their best players got hurt, they wouldn't be as good. The first real reason is Jayson Tatum's cold streaks. Last year we saw Tatum have these cold streaks, especially in the first quarter against the Sixers in the second round, and despite some bad outputs, the team was still able to win, and Tatum was able to come back and drop 51 in Game 7. The team is now built with 3 stars, so if Tatum does struggle, Brandon Porzingis should be good enough to be able to beat whoever they may play in the first or second round. After that, it might get rocky, but if you're a Celtics fan, you just hope that Tatum's on his game. The second and more likely reason to fail is the depth. They did just acquire Jaden Springer from the Sixers, but I don't really expect him to be a needle mover, and they do run close to an 11-man lineup with 11 players getting 10 or more minutes on average, but they do blow a lot of teams out like I've talked about before, and by playoff time, I expect some of those lower-level guys getting less minutes, and probably those minutes going to Tatum and Brown and Porzingis. The lineup is obviously good right now, like I mentioned, but come playoffs, if one of their stars is struggling, and they might have to bring out Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard to come in, this team will have problems, especially in the later rounds, but most of the contenders have some pretty deep teams, especially after the deadline. This may be nitpicking here, and the team has the best starting 5 in the league right now, which means they should be able to make lineups having at least one of their 3 stars on the floor at any moment in the playoffs, but the depth really is the only downfall that I could see right now to this team. The Celtics have their best chance to win in a while, and if they don't capitalize this season, it could start to get tougher for them, as every year they fail, more doubt creeps into the players' heads and the front office. They just made Jaylen Brown the highest paid player in the NBA this season. They also have Kristaps Porzingis, who they traded for and signed to a deal, Jayson Tatum on a max contract, trading for Drew Holiday. This is the best chance that they had in a long time, and we don't play the game on paper, but the Celtics have proved that they are top dogs in the league. Do you guys think this Celtics team is good enough to win the finals this year, or do you think they're going to fall short like they have the past few years? And if they do, what's going to happen with this team? Is it time to explore an option, maybe trade Jaylen Brown, maybe trade Jayson Tatum even? Let me know down below what you guys think. Let me know your finals prediction as of right now, and I'll see you in the next one.